Hi, and welcome to this edition of the Insurance Experts. It's my pleasure to have on the line George Braddock. George and I know each other because he's in the long-term care space as I am. So thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Mark. I'm very happy to share.
So I know you're a long-term care insurance specialist. What brought you into the industry?
Well, I'd spent maybe a decade or so as a general practicing life and health insurance agent. And upon determining that there was a crying need for expertise on the subject of long-term care planning, I decided to make the commitment to get educated on it and earn the premier designation for long-term care specialists. Because frankly, most people get their advice on long-term care from people who aren't terribly qualified to give it. And that's a shame because it leads to a lot of bad planning mistakes, costly mistakes.
Right. And what do you think is probably the number one misconception that people get about long-term care?
Well, I guess if they take the time to look into it, they may have come into it assuming that maybe it's expensive because they may have heard that it is. When in actual fact, it doesn't have to be. It could be expensive if you want to make it expensive, but it can also be very affordable if that's important to do.
Right. And I think there's a wide range of policies, and you can buy obviously a lot of benefits. You can buy smaller types of plans, but either plan that you have is going to provide a nice foundation for your family, right?
That's for sure, because you get to decide how much you're going to spend.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what's really cool about it is, the consumer really has the decision-making power over what type of plan that they buy. Now, I know that you recently worked with some clients that obviously built affordable plans for. Could you give us kind of an example of one of these clients, and maybe we can give the audience an idea of how much it costs?
Well, one I was especially pleased with was a custodian who was very concerned about possibility of needing care. I think because he'd had an experience, with his parents, but he was single and had kids he was very, very committed to, and especially his grandkids. Went to all their sporting events. And being single, he realized that someday he might, lose his health the way his parents did, and he might not have anybody to take care of him. And he didn't want to have to move in with his kids.
Right.
He was independent and took great pride in that and wants to remain independent for the rest of his life. So he asked me if there's any way that he could do right by his family by purchasing long-term care on a budget. And I said, absolutely, I'll do my darn level best to see if we can accomplish that. And I'm happy to say we did.
So he's a custodian. Obviously, he probably doesn't make a lot of money. How much did the plan approximately cost, the one you came up with for him?
I think he can only afford about $125 a month. And so that's what we got him. And he was able to get a plan that would pay the first few $1,000s of expenses each and every month he needed care.
Right. So he still got leverage.
He was thrilled about that.
Okay. And he got leverage on his money for the long-term care benefits. But how was he able to kind of fund that plan, afford that plan? What was the funding source that he used?
Well, he didn't have any extra money. He says, but I could maybe get rid of some expenses. And I do have one expense that is, as far as I'm concerned, it's optional, and that's my cable television. And he decided that his cable TV bill, he could easily get long-term care insurance for what he was spending on that. And it was a lot more important to him to have the peace of mind he'd get by knowing he hadn't left things to chance by purchasing a policy. And he also figured he might have an added advantage. He'd watch a lot less television.
I know people are giving up their cable to go on the internet and watch TV shows on there. In this case, he said, I have found something more important than spending it on this entertainment anyway.
Yes, and more time to go to the grandkids' ball games, I guess.
Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that story with us. We hope to have you on future episodes as well, and appreciate what you do to help people with long-term care planning out there.
Thank you. I'm very proud to have this opportunity.